Vegas, International Shopping Center.
Well, you know, just little.
It's a horrible name, but there are so many developers down there. When is a redevelopment agency? I'm vice chair of our RDA. So we went down and talked to some developers to see if there was interest in some areas that we've got designated for redevelopment. But they take up the entire Las Vegas.
I know.
It's the biggest thing I've ever done.
Did I have your sales project?
Did I do something?
High night.
That was good.
We've got plenty of room, plenty of room. We just need to select the next
There we go. So you know,
I watch you. You're amazing with that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I wish my head hurt to watch you.
We haven't had a hot.
Okay, it looks like we're at the top of the hour. I think I see enough too many human beings as we need for a quorum. So let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting, Board of Trustees meeting for Wasatch Front Waste Recycling District. I'm Dan Gibbons, the chair. I'd like to excuse Anna Vieri, our vice chair, who has a volunteer commitment at a camp, summer camp for kids, this month, so she won't be with us today. And why don't we go ahead and have our amazing board clerk, Katerina Garcia, do the roll call. Katerina.
Chair Daniel Gibbons.
Here.
Cindy Sharkey.
Here.
Eric Barney. Greg Shelton. Eric Barney. Keith Dustman.
Here.
Lori Stringham.
Here.
Patrick Schaefer. Bill Markham.
Here.
Robert Mignon.
Here.
Scott Racken.
Here, sorry.
Sherry Warren. Here. Tessa Spitzer. Thomas Steyer.
Here.
Okay. We'd also like to welcome a visitor, Pam Cotter from the Murray City Council. Thanks, Pam, for being here with us today. Let's go to the agenda. Consent items, approval requested for our May 22nd, 2023 board meeting minutes. Those are in our packets. Any comments, questions, corrections from members of the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Board member Shelton has a motion to approve. Any second?
I'll second.
Second from board member Markham. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Let's move to item 2, which is the meeting open for public comments. Any members of the public present who'd like to make a comment, or anyone online? Do you know of any comments that came in electronically?
No public comment.
I appreciate the
All right.
update. You too. We appreciate you guys. Thank you. Bye.
I don't think that was a public comment.
That's great.
I think that was a phone call.
Okay, and my watch just rang at the same moment, so it must be in sync. So there appearing to be no public comments. We'll go ahead and close the meeting, the public comment portion of the meeting. Let's move on to item 3, which is our business items. First item, 3.1, is formal acceptance of the 2022 independent financial audit and ACFR as presented during our May meeting. We apparently received and were briefed on the audit last meeting, but we failed. I'll take the heat for this. We failed to present it for motion for formal approval. Pam, any other comments about that item?
No, I think the majority of the people or the board members that were at the May meeting are here to, have a quorum to accept that.
Yes, so I would entertain a motion to formally accept the 2022 independent
Chairman?
audit.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was not at the meeting. Should I abstain?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I will do that.
Okay, so any members who are not here should abstain from voting, so, any other questions?
I'm happy to move formal approval of the audit for 2022.
Okay, we have a motion from Board Member Stringham, we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Board Member Pignon, so, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've accepted the 2022 independent audit in this ACFR, as presented last meeting. 3.2 is our annual fraud risk assessment. Paul Korth, our finance director, will take that item. Paul?
Good morning. This annual fraud risk assessment, we talked about a little at the last meeting, but we're asked to do, we're required to do these by the Utah State Auditor's Office every year. And so, I think it's actually a good thing from our viewpoint to look at this and kind of go through these steps. And we have discussed them in different meetings and with staff, and we're always trying to look at things and see, hey, can we improve this, or are there better ways to do things as far as risk and control. But there's a little, up on the screen right here, there's just a couple paragraphs. I was just going to read through this, and then we'll go look at the fraud risk assessment that we just recently completed. But the Utah State Auditor's Office requires an annual evaluation of an entity's fraud risk and separation of duties. The evaluation must be presented to the entity's governing board and submitted to the Utah State Auditor's Office. Concerning question number 3, on the basic separation of duties questionnaire, mitigating control was implemented in 2020 and continues to be in place in 2023. And we'll go into a little more detail when we look at that. Based on the existing policies, processes, and internal control, the management of Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District believes that there are adequate separation of duties and internal controls in place to minimize the risk of fraud. Based on the fraud risk assessment scorecard provided by the Utah State Auditor's Office and completed in 2023, the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District has a low risk for potential fraud. So we did go through this scorecard. One thing I'd like to point out is we say to minimize risk, and there's controls in place. I don't think you ever do away with risk 100%. And you notice too, dealing with auditors, they're very careful on what they're saying and what they represent. They need to, but even us, and I've been doing this quite a while, I think it's important to realize you minimize risk, but there's always potential, and you just always need to be aware of things going on. And things change over time, and we just need to look at things and make sure, we have separation of duties, or we have authorizations, or those types of things going on. So, on to the next page, and this is The fraud risk assessment, I'm not going to go through each category here, but you can see the different categories. I think some of you are probably very familiar with this and have seen it before, but there's a point for each question, a point assigned, and then the green check mark indicates that you received that or that's something you have in place. And so, as far as the total score, we got 335 based on this out of 395, and so that puts us in the low risk. Can we go to the next one, please? Next screen. This is the basic separation of duties. Question number 3 is the question that we've looked at in the past and we implemented in mitigating control. And the question is, are the people who are able to collect cash or check payments different from all the people who are able to adjust customer accounts? And that's, here, our customer service representatives, they can adjust accounts and they do take payments sometimes. We have other people that are looking at those payments and putting them in the bank. And then the control we implemented here was, we have a monthly report that's reviewed by a person that's not a customer service individual to look at those transactions and see, hey, what's going on. He does a sampling, I mean, he doesn't look at each transaction. But the reason that we talked about this before, and we thought it was important, because we could have had customer service not have that authority to adjust accounts. But it's really nice from an efficiency and customer service standpoint, when you have someone on the phone and you're dealing with them to correct it there and take care of it and, you know, resolve the issue or at least address the issue and not have to pull someone in at that point in time or always be dependent upon someone else. And so we think with that, we have a mitigating control that helps us, and that's the one that we answered no to. Other than that, we answered yes on the separation of duties. We are a rather small organization, so sometimes, you know, we have to just look at things and get different people involved. But overall, I think we have good controls. You know, there's always room for improvement and to do things better too. So, any questions or comments on that?
I do. I was just asking on the internal audit functions or internal audit committee. I mean, obviously, based upon structure, it's very small. And I'm only just looking at it from my board position in KMSD, is that the several of the mayors get together as a internal function, and they review on a quarterly basis all of our expenditures before they actually come to the board itself. So I don't know if that's something, and again, the complexity of your operation, is that possible? Because all you're basically they're looking at the checking and the expenditures, how those tie together, and is they're looking for something that's outstanding. But again, since we have 5 townships, town Brighton in the unincorporated area, so there's a lot of moving parts, but and a lot of expenditures over each quarter. So they're taking a look at it on a quarterly basis, just to review. It's not the in-depth, I'm gonna look at all the transactions, but again, just looking at, for the most part, I can say just the outliers, what doesn't fit, where those expenditures going. And so that was just one thing. And then, the question on, do employees and elected officials required to annually commit to ethical behavior? I think that's the easy one, just to get a yes, right? Check mark. Because we all commit to, doing our appropriate training. So there's the fraud risk assessment that I take annually just because it's part of what they ask for. So I don't know if we could get all yeses, and whether or not in a risk category, do we get more points? Does it look better? When the auditor comes and suggests we do all these things, rather than not having the check.
I think as far as the points where we're at, we look okay. is there room for improvement, or could we do, do we wanna take additional time on some of these, and have the elected officials, committed in writing annually? That would be pretty easy to do, we could do that. And then sometimes I take a step back too and go, how is this going to help us too, and does this help us with risk? And what's, not just does it look good for the auditors and for the board, but is there a real value there too? And so I think we can do some of these things. I mean, if we wanna, as far as an internal audit function, we really don't have that. If we want an audit committee, I think part of the audit committee is done by the board as a whole, when the auditors come in and we have that discussion that we had last time. But if we wanted to have a separate audit committee and review expenditures quarterly, that would be fine with me. I can support that if the board so chooses. I don't know Pam's thoughts, but I'm fine with something like that. And we could look and see what are some other functions that an audit committee would do too. As far as, I was just gonna say one other thing, as far as the internal audit, the audit committee too, a lot of times they're getting, I think, reports from the outside auditor and then internal audit, larger organizations or companies, Salt Lake County, the state, they're gonna have internal audit and come and look at things very close. We don't have that. But the auditors do look at a lot of our transactions. We give them stacks and checks and, things when they come, they look at it, but I'm fine if that's the choice of the board.
I was just gonna give my experience, because I represent a lot of districts, and that one in particular is one that districts, it's not uncommon for districts not to check that box, because it is kind of awkward for these small organizations. I do have some that have done like what you said, have some people meet once in a while. I have one district that, has more or less like a finance committee, and they'll meet, not regularly, but like as needed, but they'll typically meet before the audit is presented to the main board, like review it before, but I mean, it's, like you said, is it really adding anything? Not necessarily, but it's allowing you to check that box, like, there's a smaller group of people that have reviewed it before we give it to the bigger group of people, so there's ways you can do it, but it's not uncommon, is what I basically want to get across for districts to not have that box checked.
Let me, say that's a really interesting idea. Any other board members, and then Pam as well, but any other board members have any opinion on whether we ought to have a finance committee or an audit review committee? Or if you think that what we've been doing sort of as a body at large is sufficient. Any other comments from the board? And then, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too.
I have 2 comments when there's time.
Yes, Lori?
A couple things. One of the things I was going to say, the assessment for the board that is listed as an option, that's actually a great training tool for new board members as well, to help us understand what are obligations and some of the ethics that go behind what it is we do as a group. I know the trust, I believe, has a copy of a test that we take in and use as training as well. So does the state auditor's office. And it's actually a really good tool for the board to look at what it is we do and why we do it and how we should be doing it. As far as having an audit committee is a good first go around to make sure that we're doing things the way we should and understand what it is we do. And usually an audit committee is really good if the entity is very large. This assessment is for all types of entities. They do recognize and understand that smaller entities don't have the ability or capacity or even sometimes even the need, because there's so few transactions and each transaction is being approved check by check, or by the board instead of just the whole thing reviewed. For those entities where the board approves them check by check, that's not really necessary. As the entity gets larger, sometimes it's good for the board to take that cursory glance at the checks to make sure they're going where they're supposed to be going and just have that confidence as we go into a regular audit. So there are pros and cons to doing it, and we're kind of in that middle size as an entity where we could go either way. I'm comfortable either way, noting that we actually have really good controls and things in place at the moment.
Thank you, Board Member Strand. Any other comments from the board, and then Pam?
I'll just say, as far as the, ethics, I mean, we have to do ethics training constantly, so do you get our certificates for that? And does that suffice for us?
Yeah, it's a 4-year, I believe. Could you scroll back up just one page?
So they just want this every year, even though we do get our certificates?
Yeah, it's not just board, it's staff.
Yeah, and
So-
is there a reason why you don't have that or wouldn't want to have that?
No, actually, there's
Well, I think with the staff, and we talked about that before, Matt, what level of staff do we need every person to do that? And we started looking at that and going, do we need all our equipment operators and all those individuals too? And we started thinking, is this, you know, the value there? Yeah, as far as management and admin, it wouldn't be too big a deal. We could even do it with the equipment operators, but I'm not sure, you know, if that is what the intent is either. So we did talk about that before.
Yeah, and I think, you know, once we get our HR manager on board,
Yeah.
part of the training, and I do have a candidate that has accepted, but I don't wanna say anything until the August meeting, and you get to finally meet her. But at any rate, I think that could be an annual training. Would we have every employee being willing to sign off? I think that they are willing to follow. It's whether or not they'd be willing to sign something that might be intimidating, but I think that we could get there. But Paul's point, it's easy for us that are kind of blue collar in the office to be able to do that, because we're the ones that are really monitoring everything. So, and I didn't quite catch what Board Member Stringham said about the trust, but the trust does have, a point value that will go along with this annual assessment. So every member of the trust will have to submit their fraud risk assessment. And we are like 1 point shy of what's required from the trust. So I was talking with Paul a little bit about, you know, could there be a little, you know, bumping up that we could do, or a little improvement? So I think there is some room. One of the things that, as a board member of the trust, every time we meet, Steve Hansen, the executive director, presents the expenditures. So he has a whole list available in our packet to review. And granted, it's quite the packet to review, but since we're tasked with that fiduciary responsibility, you know, it's something that we take seriously. So it could be one of two ways, I think. We could submit it, you know, as part of the packet, or it's a separate attachment for you to have available for you as a board, and then we have that be an acceptance. That's something that we do, or could it be a quarterly acceptance? I mean, there's different ways we could go about it.
It seems like, I don't know, it says our employees, so I don't know what they mean, I assume employees, but do you do annual reviews with all your employees?
You mean evaluation?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it could be
Oh, yeah.
as simple as that, just when they're doing their annual evaluation, they decide a new ethics behavior thing, and that way it just always stays in compliance with their annual reviews or something like that. When they sign on their first hire, then they sign that, and then every year when they're reviewed, they could just sign it.
Just right in their evaluation. Thank you.
To just include it in their evaluations. And then as far as the
Great
audits,
idea.
I feel the same, it's either one way or the other, it's fine if you include it, it's not. I know one of the other districts I serve on, we just, every month in our packet is the checkbook. The transactions are in our packet, so, because it's all public record anyway, so it just gets included in our packets, and you can go through and review the transactions and see if you think anything seems a little off or anything like that. It's always just another avenue for people to review. I don't know how well that would work here or not either, but.
I think we had, Board Member Barney has his hand raised. Laurie, I'm not sure if you raised your hand again, but, Eric first, and then Laurie, if you had another comment.
Yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I was just, for me, first off, I don't have any concerns with the risk assessment and where it fell this year. I'm not sure this is something where we're trying to maximize it's not like an assessment where we're shooting for 100%, but maybe we are. For me, if the risk is being managed effectively and we don't have issues and we're not self-identifying issues, I'm comfortable with where we're at. without having a formal audit committee. I'm not sure the size justifies it at this point, or the volume of transactions does. As far as requiring employees and elected officials to commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior, my career has been in banking, so risk mitigation is like ingrained in the fiber of my soul. And I lead a learning and development team, and this is actually not a very difficult thing to accomplish digitally or virtually. It's as simple as an online module where people just attest. And then that attestation is digitally recorded and easily handed over to an auditor or to a committee to review that everyone's done it. So not a tremendous expense or a lot of work or effort on anyone's part to be able to produce something like that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I actually had another one. The formal internal audit function can be as simple as bringing specific things in an audit format to the board to review, such as each of the check stubs and things like that, and having us send in an agreement that we all we're comfortable with what's being paid out and why. That is a simple way of doing it, and you can actually do something much more informal than a full formal audit committee. So you can have a formal internal audit function that the board oversees as a whole board in our meetings versus a formal audit committee, which is something we might want to consider. That would actually up our points, and it's a good practice.
Okay, thank you. Let me just make a suggestion. I wonder if we should put this on the agenda for perhaps discussion in August or September, and it sounds like we have 2 or 3 options that have been suggested. Either we go with our status quo, we don't do any kind of a special audit function as a board, or we do an audit committee, or we make available, actually this is probably already the case, make available any of the financial transactions to any of the board members that are interested, or we do some kind of a hybrid like Laurie suggested. And anyway, I think we just let's put it on the agenda though, rather than simply making some kind of decision yay or nay. Let's put it on the agenda for maybe brief discussion next meeting.
Sounds good.
Whenever that is.
And I appreciate Board Member Stringer making that distinction between number 8 and number 9, is that there is a difference between an audit function and an audit committee. So, yeah, thank you for making that distinction, because that could be, the function could just be, easily available for you as a board to review, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, anything else in your presentation?
No, we're good.
Now, you're requesting acceptance of this. Are we looking for a motion and a formal acceptance, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We turn this into the state auditor's office, and then it shows up on their website, and just, that's part of the reason that we're supposed to present it to the board, and so we're looking for formal acceptance.
Okay. I'll entertain then a motion to accept the annual fraud risk assessment.
So moved.
Board Member Orrin makes the motion. We have a second.
This is Keith, I'll second.
Keith Zussman seconds. Any discussion?
Just one quick item.
Yes.
There are 2 more pages that show the 2022 assessment, and we are tracking exactly the same.
Yeah.
So just to make that comment.
Okay, good.
And we were asked to include that in the packet, the last year's.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor of acceptance, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, very good. Thank you, Paul, that's accepted. So move on now to item 3.3. Pam and Melissa Cotter will present our equipment operator apprentice program discussion. Pam and Melissa, go right ahead.
I would like to recognize Andy King, who is our asset manager. He's a big part of developing this program along with Renee Plant.
He was instrumental in designing the training and the hours to, go along with CDL requirements as well as what the, State Department of Workforce Services was, asking for. So I'm just gonna do a brief background, and then I'm gonna turn it over to the experts. And Melissa's here to walk through the methodology of the salary and the pay. The other thing I would just mention is that we're not asking for additional allocations for equipment operators. The idea is that we're gonna use these, at least 2 allocations, to fill. These are vacant positions. Right now, we have 7 vacancies, and we really haven't had a lot of movement with recruitment and onboarding. So we've heard through the grapevine that Yellow, the trucking company, is gonna be closing their doors, so we may see some flow coming in. But in the meantime, we want to, request approval for this equipment operator apprentice program that these folks have worked hard on. So, anything else that I might have missed, if you want to get into the workforce services and that possibly?
Yeah, but, so as Pam stated, these aren't additional allocations. These are essentially, I like to think of it as one of 3 recruiting avenues that we can have now. So, we have our scrap program where we bring folks in, and ground crew, and then, also if they have a CDL, we have a regular process, and then this is the apprenticeship, which, I'm very excited about, because we can really focus on career-oriented folks, and, as young as 18, right out of high school. And, as Workforce Services, calls it, earn to learn. So they can come in and as Pam stated, a big shout out to Andy for taking our current training module and essentially translating it into hours so that we can fit into that format of the Workforce Services apprenticeship program. And, again, that partnership with that organization, they can help streamline some of these folks that are interested, and really helps there. And potentially, we've got our fingers crossed, after you all approve, because I'm positively saying that you'll approve it, then we can take it to our federal person that potentially can look at some grant money for us, to where they'll potentially pay half of the apprentice's salary for the first 6 months. So that potentially could be a huge benefit for us. And again, getting folks in here committed to where it's more of a career, and very excited about it. Andy, you want to add anything?
Yeah, so essentially, right now, our minimum qualifications are CDL, 1 year of experience. This is a program designed to either take an employee with 0 CDL experience that maybe already has one, or train an employee to get their CDL and give them that minimum 1 year experience to actually fill the position long term. So that's kind of a shortfall we've had in our processes previously. So that's why we've kind of tried to develop this, and part of it is with the state and federal funding is they require basically a tiered program, meaning that we give them 2,000 hours, which is essentially a year, and after about a year, or after about 6 months, 1,000 hours, we give them a raise, and Melissa will kind of talk to that, how that works. Anything else?
We can talk about, we included in the packet the actual job description that we had worked on, where it explains more in detail what Andy was talking about right there. So if you all want to read that in your leisure, feel free.
But you can see there's no prior work experience or education required. So these could be high school graduates coming in, and they want to have a career in the waste industry and be an equipment operator. So it's just bring them in, and as Andy has dubbed it, the grow your own driver program. So that's the philosophy behind it.
You mentioned high school a couple of times, so not even a high school degree, not even a diploma, they just 18, they have to be 18.
Yeah, exactly. And McKenna does an excellent job of going out to, our high schools and schools to, just talk about recycling, and we've already kind of tapped and said, hey, maybe this is something else you can talk about, we can, bring some folks in.
Yeah. there's no questions so far, we can get into, if you'll scroll back up to the tier structure and the pay scale, and working with Melissa, she, of course, waves her magic wand and does a brilliant job designing the pay, so.
So, when I met with Renee and Andy and Pam, we kind of talked about, do we really need to look at a different type of compensation for the apprentice program? And my research has shown that there's other, companies, private and public, that do this. Your direct competitor, Waste Management, has an apprentice program, as well as Jordan School District with their substitute bus drivers. So this isn't a new program, but it's like, how do you compensate? How do you entice people to make sure that this is what they want to go into this industry and get the skills and training that they need, and then also show them a career path to make them want to stay. And so when we looked at it, we've already kind of built a pay range. If you look at the midpoint, which is the 50th percentile on the table that's titled 2023 Equipment Operator Pay Range, that's what we call the market pay. Those are people that are skilled and that are performing the job, and anything above that are ones that are just saying, I've made my career choice, I'm staying, and I know that I can maximize or I can promote into additional positions. Below that are people that are still gaining that skill set, that are looking at getting to become, in this case, more of a proficient CDL driver, especially with the side load trucks. And so we've determined, as WFWRD as well as the board, that just bringing people in at minimum isn't enough to compete in the industry. So when we recruit an equipment operator, we're bringing them in at the 25th percentile, and that's just with 1 year of experience. And so we felt like we had that first quartile that we could work with, and instead of building a new range around an apprentice program, they're basically learning how to perform the job as an equipment operator. When we talked about starting at the minimum of the range, I kind of went out and looked at the market as far as job postings. I didn't necessarily do a market study on it. And those two direct competitors that I identified, Waste Management, their job posting for West Jordan says $20 an hour. I don't know what they're getting through their door at $20 an hour. And that's basically what we're asking: no prior experience, no CDL, we'll train you, you'll work right alongside another Waste Management driver. Looking at Jordan School District, as you know, a lot of fiscal years start July 1, and when we started this, I looked, and they had posted 2108 for their bus drivers, for their substitute bus drivers. And what they do is they require the CDL, so they'll show up with their CDL, but then they, as a district, will provide the 40 to 60 hours of training. And it's substitute, which means it's a non-benefited position. Well, as of the last time I went on the internet, probably within the last week, they bumped it to 2357. So just know that us asking to bring them in at 2184 is a little bit lower, but we're offering them a career, which again, these other companies do as well. But Jordan School District would be starting off as a non-benefited substitute, so you're not giving them the full-time hours that they possibly are looking at.
But it's not full-time hours,
Right.
this would be full-time hours.
Right, this is a full-time position.
And benefited.
And benefited.
Right.
And so I still feel pretty confident making that offer of starting at the 2184, and then as soon as they complete the requirement for Tier 1, which they're estimating about 6 months, then they would go to the 2239. They would complete another 1,000 hours, and that's listed in that job description. And then, once they hit their year with WFWRD, then that's when they get the 25th percentile, which is what we're recruiting in the drivers at. One last thing, if you want to go to the pay plan, you can kind of see where you've got your temporary seasonal. Your scrap equipment operator is coming in at that 2184. Again, like Renee said, this is just giving them another career option. So if you've got someone who says, hey, I really kind of want to learn a little bit more so that I can get that full-time equipment operator position, then they can kind of look at, here's a Tier 1 structure, here's Tier 2, because they're coming already with their CDL. So I think it all works hand in hand, and I'm really excited for the hard work that that Andy and Renee have done, and I think it's gonna be a great, benefit to what Wilford already offers for recruitment. I'll turn it back to you, Pam.
Okay, so if there's questions from the board or comments, I think Board Member Barney has his hand up.
Yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. First off, this is an exciting program. I do have one question, and I'm hopeful that you can alleviate my concern. And that is, what have we baked in other than the pay and the tiers to keep people once they come in and we get them their CDL and we get them all these qualifications? How do we what are you thinking will retain them with Wooford as opposed to them jumping ship and going somewhere else?
Well, and it's a very good question, and so, one of the things that, the, Workforce Services talked about was an agreement or a contract. And so I've been working with Rachel Anderson, our wonderful legal counsel, on what could we do, to at least have them stay the full year. And then, of course, thereafter, one of the things that we hope, Board Member Barney, is that our culture, and our work schedule is something that they desire. And one of the things that the equipment operators give us feedback about all the time is that they love the 4-10 schedule. They get a day off every week, and it's guaranteed. It rotates through, and then each equipment operator gets a 4-day weekend. I think it's within a 5 week time frame, because everybody rotates through, if that makes sense. So 20% of our equipment operators are off every day. Rachel and I did develop an agreement, and it's something that she feels comfortable with legally. It basically would be that they would pay us back for the CDL, that we pay for, and the DOT certification. It's not huge dollars.
Minimal, right? It's under $1,000.
It's like $200,
Yeah.
roughly. So I don't know if that helps, that would be our approach.
No, thank you. That is helpful. I just wanted to make sure that there was something focused on retention so that we're not investing. Hiring, training can be an expensive process. And so I'd hate to invest in these people and have them leave.
Yeah, thank you. Board Member Bracken has his hand up. Scott?
Okay, oh, there we go. That's probably better. You can hear me if I unmute myself. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
At what point do they does the drivers or the apprentices be eligible to go solo on a route? Is that after 6 months? Does that take the entire year? Or, what point do we have them out doing more independent work?
On a side load route, for them to go solo on their own would be 1 year. We have some other avenues for training, such as scrap, some of that kind of stuff where we allow them to get some hours. They are minimal. They would not be turned loose on a side load route on their own for 1 year.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions yet?
I would just like to say, I think we need to emphasize with these employees the value of retention as well.
Yes.
That is something that's not readily available in the workforce almost anywhere anymore, and it's more and more important. And if they understand the value of that I really think that if we can drill that into their head, that when they're discouraged or when they're looking or whatever, and they think, wow, you know what, I'm invested in this, and if I just ride this out and make things better, it's going to pay off big in the end, and it does.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Go ahead.
Sherry, then Keith.
My question was a lot what Scott had asked, the same question, but, so then it calculates in because, they would pay us back to 200, but we're also a year of salary into them that we're out if they leave us. And so can we make it like a 2-year agreement? Like if you come on, you have to stick with us for 2 years. So at least for a year, we get to recover some of the cost of training them. Because for a full year, we're really training them, and that whole salary for that year is really, it's beneficial to some degree if they stay with us, but if they don't stay with us, we never recoup any of that So that would be nice if we could figure out, because 18, you should be able to commit enough that if we're gonna give you a free year of training, basically, that you could work for us for a year after that. Or else there has to be some sort of a payback process. Anyway, that's, what do you, I don't know if that's possible or legal.
Basically, what we've looked at is just having payback of the small cost of the license itself. We haven't considered anything more than that, such as the salary, because they are still gonna be employees and
Yeah,
that's their salary, so they can't
yeah.
be required to necessarily pay that back.
That's the only hard part, because that's the big risk,
Yeah,
right?
and the problem is, as I'm looking into this, is that, companies that have gone afoul of these, requirements, legal requirements, it's been, described as being akin to indentured servitude. So, you know, you don't wanna get into a situation where you're contracted to work for a certain number of time, because that runs afoul of the law. So, I mean, there's little things we can do, like asking them to pay back some of the licensing fees and stuff,
Yeah.
but can't really ask them to pay back their salary, so.
But you couldn't have them sign a 2-year contract that says you're gonna work for us for 2 years.
We could.
But you think it's
But
worth,
what's the enforcement of that?
Yeah.
What are
The
the,
tricky part is the
Yeah.
enforcement.
Sure.
what are we doing if they say no, or if they leave, you know, that sort of thing?
But
Yeah.
can we hold them
Yeah.
legally, legally too?
no, it's just hard, it's just a little,
Yeah,
I think it's
it
a great
is.
opportunity, it just seems it's just a little risky on our part too, in exactly that, because especially if you're hiring young kids who are just trying to figure out life, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go here, gonna go there, you know, there's a lot of balance in mentality. I love the idea of that. Also push home that government's the only place I know that every year you get a COLA. You know what I mean? It's like, I never see that in the private industry. A lot of times people get raises, but it's like structured into government jobs. It's like, oh, we got to do the COLA. So I think that's really important to make sure people understand that too, that everywhere you go, you don't just get a raise every year.
Keith, I think you have a comment.
Yeah, I was in this process, and whether or not was that, especially you're targeting a younger age, and getting them in, pulling them into the workforce, get to CEO. And again, there's two parts to that. One is that, is there a bonus system, so to speak? I get my 1 year, I get a little extra cash. I get the 2 years, I get a little extra cash. And that would, again, incentivize them to, I give them 1 year, ooh, I get some cash. If I get through to my second year, which then completes all of my basics, then I'm really not seasoned, but I'm past the apprentice. Past the apprentice part of it, because I get another small chunk of change. And those are, especially depending on the target audience, that's a pull.
Incentives versus.
Carrots and sticks.
Easier than.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it really is difficult, and I think it's been discussed previously, is that even though we have a pension program, we have, the insurance aspects of it, the 401k, where you're, investing in yourself. When you have those discussions with, because we're a little older, and when you have those discussions with an 18-year-old, they're like, yeah, Ben, they're just, it's cash in hand, because they're not looking for where I am at 50, because that's a lifetime. From their thought process.
They're on their parents' insurance for the next 30 years. Why do they care?
That's right, I can hang on, I can hang on my parents' insurance till 26, and I'm covered,
You're right about that. But those are some of those things. It's like, it's just my aspects from the, working as a personnel person in the military, having those conversations with people and, realistic what the benefits are, and where you are, where that if somebody comes in at 18 and retire at 38, and then move on to another career. So, but there is, what can they do? What can you do to?
Better approach.
Or you get a Milky Way bar.
You don't do it.
But I don't know if that's something that, and I'm just throwing out, like, you get $1,000 here, you get $1,000. But again, that's, they understand cash. They don't understand what you're gonna pay me after 20 years. Well, you really can't. You can't wait till you're 62 to actually collect. But, you know, the whole structure of the retirement system. But how do you hook them?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good idea.
Great
Also,
comment.
can I just make a comment though, is you've got to also look at pay equity with your existing employees. And so you can't just recruit somebody a different way who's already had the CDL 1 year experience and recruit them to come in and say, oh, you weren't part of our training program, so you don't get the bonus after you did your 1 year. You know, we are giving them credit for prior experience, but we're also wanting to get them early on in their career, so they'll stay longer. So, I mean, if that's the road we want to go, I love it. I just think that we need to open the discussion to look at also the current employees and looking at, can we beef up our incentive program? You know, right now it's just that, you know, you have a performance evaluation and you either get it or you don't. And is it something that would make it a little bit more, lucrative for them and that they actually have to meet performance goals and do all of that and get higher compensation based upon what they did for the past year versus they either get it or don't get it.
For the years of service benefit, right?
Yeah.
The 1 year, maybe,
Yeah,
we now have the
review.
The 1 in 3 we just implemented, right? And so maybe we look.
So I'm just saying, I like that, but I think we're gonna have to build on to it if that's where the direction of the board wants to go with this.
Well, in other words, we might, if we went that way, the incentive bonus way, we might, in equity, want to bonus existing employees who have already reached those benchmarks. And I wouldn't be averse to that, personally. That might be something we think about. And I think, Scott, did you have your hand up again? Maybe not, maybe that.
No, I did not. I just didn't take it yet.
Okay. Yes, Rob?
Yeah, just, has there been any discussion about compensating or recognizing the mentors for the time they're gonna spend with an 18-year-old? Are they typically managers already? Do they have a title that makes that part of their duties already?
Good question. So that is that's part of the program that has been a piece of this as well behind the scenes. And Renee and Andy, David and Cione and Dustin have all been a part of the discussions of trying to develop that structure, right? We have to have the structure in place. So that is in the works, and I think we have 2 supervisors that are getting certified to be able to do the CDL training. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Go ahead.
So to answer your question, yes. So long and short, we have, right now, we currently utilize our leads, which would be like a foreman type position. That's our formal trainers right now. We're working through the process of putting this program under a supervisor. And then long range goals are creating a mentor position that would be specific to this program, that would be dedicated to essentially government force.
Thank you. All right, any other comments or questions from the board yet, Greg?
Yeah, I had, kind of going back to the incentive, I'm not real familiar with pensions, but I'm familiar with how 401ks work and different things like that. Could you offer a one-time contribution as a reward that wouldn't necessarily pay out if they left early, but would go directly into their pension as a bonus bump to that pension?
So like a vested program.
Right, rather than.
Be there a certain amount of time in order for it to vest.
Yeah, rather than just saying, well, here's a grant, you know, for every year of service you do. Instead, say, hey, we're gonna increase your investment or, you know, something of that nature.
I think the answer would be yes, and I think we would need to do that for every employee.
Right, and that's where I'm thinking that it would be a little bit more equitable for everybody, but that way you can say, hey, you know, and you complete your apprenticeship program, but if you stay for a year, you get this as well, which also kind of shows them and trains them about the pension and shows them the value of that.
We could
Just a thought.
research that to see, you know, legally
Yeah.
through URS or some other, way to have a separate account. I'm not sure, we'd have to check into legalities. But I do think that one of the things we can do, that I know we can do, even under my purview, is to bump up the years of service awards. And we did do that last year, Paul?
Yeah.
Under your recommendations, that we had the same amount, dollar amount for, years of service for many years. And then we also, as Renee mentioned, we rolled out the one, it started at 5 years, so we wanted to do something before that.
Yeah.
But at 1 year, they get $50. Do we need to do a little bit more than that amount? So, yeah, I think that's worth us taking a look at.
Just an alternative look at
Yeah.
something to have them appreciate and see that it's something to work toward, so.
Yeah, Melissa and I had that discussion of going from 2184 to 2239, is that gonna be enough after 6 months? And then from 2239 to the, where am I at? With my operator. 2294, you know, is that gonna be enough? And those are the things that we're still.
Well, that was our discussion last week until we saw this new posting from, and we're gonna see that with a lot of July 1 fiscal year jobs. I mean, they look at Woodford for just January 1st, and then they restructure for 6 months.
Gas wars all over again.
And then it starts
Gas price
over,
wars.
and so we might be back here in the fall. I mean, I was really shocked that Jordan School District went up that high. Just for temporary.
The only difference there though is that it's not apples to apples, because that's part-time,
Right.
unbenefited
Right.
employment.
But what are they paying once you go on full-time? It's gotta be starting above that 23.57.
After a year.
Once you get your contract, yeah.
Let me see if I can summarize sort of where we are in this discussion. So we have before us a great plan, and we haven't voted on this, but my sense is it sounds like the board likes what we're doing, and we definitely, you know, we don't want to scrap this, but it sounds like the discussion is centered around the apprentice program as presented, plus some other incentives, so that we don't train someone and then send them out to take advantage of all of the credentials that we've onboarded for them. We want to keep them, and so I guess maybe my question for Pam and for Melissa is, would you like us to go ahead and approve this, but maybe see if we can tack something on and maybe have your research contractually and financially and keeping in mind equity for existing employees? Or are you requesting us to go ahead and approve this, and then maybe we add something or consider adding something in August or September? Is that?
Yes, if I could, get the go-ahead today, and especially since we're requesting not to meet in July, and then that way we can move forward with the program and continue designing and training the existing staff, to help make this a success.
Okay. Any other comments from members of the board? Why don't we do this then? Let's entertain a motion to approve the equipment operator apprentice program as presented in our packet, and then request that Pam and Rachel and Melissa maybe consider some of the other options to add on to the program at a later date. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the program as presented.
So moved.
Okay. Board Member Markham has made the motion. Second.
I'll second.
Greg Shelton makes the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your great work. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to item 3.4, staff's request to cancel the July 2023 board meeting. This has been a tradition, by the way, as long as I've been on the board. Any comments or objections or questions from the members of the board?
I like tradition.
Exactly. All right, we have a motion to approve.
That was my motion.
Okay. Board Member Horn, motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
All right, Greg Chilton, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is approved. No meeting until August. All right, Pam, General Manager's report.
All right, let's get on with the fun stuff. I put this up here, wanted to kind of give some comedy relief. But just the context to this, these two pictures here. I was headed out on my bicycle one Saturday morning, and this gentleman went right by as I was getting ready to turn onto 1300 East, and I thought, I've got to get a picture of this. And so I got some context to what he was doing. As you can see, there's some poles in the back of that can that are sticking out. He goes around and he picks up the recycling that's off to the side of the road, and he puts it in his can, and he takes it home so that we can pick it up every Friday, which I thought was really cool. If I can track him down again.
Stuff that's been discarded or left in the gutters, that type of stuff.
On the sides, and some, as you can see, it's pretty clean. There's a cardboard box right there, it's pretty clean. So,
He didn't crush it though.
no, he didn't break it down, you're right. We won't penalize him for that. It's a big shout out. So,
I told Pam that if we have problems with, fuel, maybe we can.
the equipment operator bicyclist.
Yeah.
That'll go over big. Another part of the apprenticeship program. There we go. It'll be much cheaper. But to, just, reiterate our mission, and this may go into when we get to the plastic bag discussion. We provide sustainable, quality, integrated waste recycling collection services for the health and safety of our community, because none of it fits into the can. And you can see our vision, and our goals. So Renee, if you would, every time I do a report, I try to match, our vision or goals, to say how we're doing and how we're performing. So just, 2 weeks ago, on Thursday, we had the National Waste and Recycling Workers, or I call it Garbage Person Day celebration. But every June 17th, the week of the 17th, is the National Waste and Recycling Workers Week. One of the tidbits for everyone to understand is that OSHA ranks the waste and recycling industry as the top 6 most dangerous job in the United States. So I think that's something that we forget about, because the truck comes by, takes their can, we don't really realize all the moving parts that are behind that. But it is large pieces of equipment that our folks are operating, that they're around every day. Landfill also is very dangerous. So every year we hold a celebration, and since COVID, we've started having a food truck and hold the celebration outside. And I want to thank those board members that were able to be here. That meant a lot to the staff. We had 6 of you all that were here to help celebrate. It is about our people, who are our most valued resource, and happy to celebrate them. And we do go the extra mile with those recognitions that we give. So those of you that were there saw me running around and giving big shout outs and awards to employees that were nominated by their peers and recognized with dollar amount. So outstanding employee awards are worth $250 on a paycheck for an employee that's going above and beyond, nominated by their peers. And then we have a recognition committee that meets once a month to review those to make sure that it hits the criteria for that award. We also have a high five award that's worth $150 on the paycheck. And then, so you'll know, we have safety incentive programs. I've mentioned those briefly, but we reward safety in 2 ways. One is through a gift card through Amazon, and I know Paul has great financial controls to make sure that we're monitoring that very closely, because it is cash, basically. And it's $25 a month for no claims filed. So that's huge to the trust, accountability, and recognition program, the team, sorry. And then we have the monthly safety awards for people that are operating our equipment, that it's a progressive amount, and I believe the annual dollar amount, once they get to the top, is over $600 a year that they're eligible for to earn by being, accident, incident, and injury-free. Okay. All right, moving on to employee satisfaction. I wanted to just briefly let you know about the Blue Novus, which was a robust EAP program that you all approved as part of our budget. It was an increased expenditure from years past. What Blue Novus does is it provides an app that can be downloaded on all of our cell phones. Each employee can download the app, and there's access to vignettes for communication, dealing with difficult conversation, relationship building. And then the other piece that is available is we can opt into these two different text messages that we can get each week. So there's the text message from Hope, and it's all about well-being. And you can see just an example. This is a weekly text that I downloaded and put on the screen so you can see what that looks like. And then there's Norm for leadership. So we as leaders get some text and some coaching on what we can do to inspire employees and also help with their well-being. So these are just examples I wanted to show you. If there's no questions or comments, I'll keep rolling. The other thing I want to say about Blue Novus is they have a call center or a care center for each employee. They can text or call and get connected right away with an expert to walk them through what's happening at the moment, any crisis, or if they need to be, an employee might need to be connected with a professional and go to any kind of counseling appointments. They're connected with that, and our program pays up to 8 visits, and then also families included. All of our family members can download the app as well. Okay. Getting into customer satisfaction and appreciation, just on May 25th, just some context to the story. We have our equipment operators, Junior Vigil, engaged to Corte, who wanted to make sure that we did an extra effort to recognize Eric Hutchinson. He's a Taylorsville resident, and he's junior high school age. He goes around and helps to make sure that the routes are clean, the cans are standing for the drivers to make sure that they can empty those. If anything flies out of the can before the driver gets there, he'll go pick it up and put it back in the can so they can empty it. But that's his daily duty when he's off, not going to school. His mom actually will drive him around to help with the
Future
collection,
employee.
right? Yeah.
This is on his own, he came up with this, how did this come to be?
Yeah, he's just intrigued with the big trucks, and Junior and Gage have both talked to him personally, and Eric will be one of our future apprentices, I have no question about that. And he's very intrigued with equipment, so I think he'll be Andy's successor down the road, a few years down the road. Since he's junior high age, I think he's probably got about 8 more years to get there, but I just wanted to give an example of what our staff really are passionate about it with our customers, and vice versa. Our board vice chair, Anna Barbieri, was able to be at the event to help to recognize Eric. Isn't it great? And Katerina was there, thank you very much, and McKenna, who were behind the scenes making sure that this happened. And I can tell you I only got to see the pictures of the kids' face when they walked out to see the truck. And they, some of them, Katerina mentioned, were pointing at, I know that guy, I know that kid. Oh. So it was pretty exciting for everybody. An orientation to the waste and recycling industry for the whole junior high. Okay, and then moving on to environmental financial stewardship. This is a bit of a follow-up item that has been in discussion with the board the past few months. And so I wanted to first show you an example of some of the lids on the recycling containers and talk about the evolution of those. So in 2019, we rolled out the embossed sticker. So that is part of the recycling lid. It's just underneath the final layer of the coating that they put on the plastic. And so that, with the discussions, and we'll go, when we get to the next page, you'll see the evolution of the sticker itself. And then starting next year, when we order, right now we have to finish our order and our agreement with our contractor and use the emboss that you see before you. But in 2024, Andy will work with our vendor and get the new sticker embossed on the recycling can. And as you've mentioned, it's gonna take a while to get that new can out there to all the residents, so we have a plan in the meantime to test stickers on the cans that might have the lids off to the right. Okay, so moving on to the sticker campaign, this is a follow-up, and you'll see the sticker that McKenna worked hard on, and I want to shout out to her to implement some of your requests and I think that we've come up with a great sticker that won't be too overwhelming, and that's the key. We don't want to overwhelm people with too much information, but we also wanted to put pictures up there, because even though it might be in English and Spanish, I think pictures are international. They speak all languages. So this campaign will roll out in July, and we're looking at 600 total homes, 200 in each, Magna, Kearns, and Taylorsville, hitting the folks that aren't quite doing what we need them to do, and see how it goes. And we'll monitor that, those areas for a couple months, I believe, and see how it goes. And if it's effective in turning people's behavior around, then we'll spread it out throughout other areas that are struggling. So that is my report. If there's any questions from the board, or?
Any questions for Pam?
Go ahead.
Keith?
How the stickers, the proposed program, those 600 homes, has that gone out yet? And then,
Has it started?
yeah.
No, it'll start next month.
Oh, okay.
You're fine.
Scott?
This sticker, almost this size, maybe just a little bit bigger, be nice to have one, or maybe reprint some. I found putting them on the garbage can in the house helps with the younger kids. Is it there? So before it goes out to the blue can, it gets put in, like, it's in the house, so I don't know if it's not a big deal, maybe print up some that we could have at community events or something like that.
Yeah.
If you've already done the design, it was consistent with that. I just found that having the reminder in the house was really
Yeah, we've worked with a vendor and gotten a prototype and a price quote, so we can certainly.
This is for the garbage can. I mean, that's gonna be a different kind of sticker, but you've got the artwork. It shouldn't be.
Oh, just the flyer
For
itself.
inside.
You pick up something that was a sticky back that was inside that you could stick to a plastic garbage can or something.
And have them available at events. Yeah, we can do that.
And I gather that this design is not set in stone, because this would be a 2024 when we would first, well, actually, we'll be using this in July, okay. So yeah, any other questions or comments about this or any other topic in Pam's report? Thank you, Pam. Thanks so much. All right, let's move on to item 3.6, plastic bag discussion. Let me just make a quick comment, and then let Phil. We have a one-page document at the end of our packet, which is a fantastic summary of where we are both nationally and locally with respect to bans. But let me just make this comment. Obviously, this board has no authority to impose any sort of a ban, nor do any of us individually without the concurrence of our respective councils in our respective municipalities or townships have the authority to impose any kind of a ban. But this is a fantastic discussion for us to have, because we may want to, as individuals, take this sort of information back to our city councils, for example, and in fact, I'm going to do that in any event, whether my fellow council members want to have a ban or not. This is a great discussion for us to have. So with that, let's just refer to that last page, and Phil, if you want to just lead out in this discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you make a great point, and I fully realize that, we're we're not a decision-making board of anything of this stature or that. My real goal, I think, is to restart the conversation again. It's been kind of pushed aside, I think for a lot of reasons, and the main one is because it's a county level decision probably to really make this be effective. And my goal, if we could accomplish anything, would be to possibly draft a statement or, a position that we could take back to our individual councils and tell them, the district already prohibits, it's a prohibited waste in the containers. So our position is established on that. If we could draft some type of statement or position, and see if our councils wanted to sign that in support of that, then I think that would be a great first step. That's really about as far as I see us being able to take anything, and it could start a conversation to where eventually this gains more traction and more support, and we could see, a firmer action taken by the people that can do that.
I'd like let's just open it up for discussion from
Sure.
members of the board, and then, Pam, if you have any comments, I'd love to hear your comments. And I don't know if there's a legal issue that we need to be careful about, Rachel, but maybe, let's hear from the board first. Any comments about this discussion piece at the end of our packet? Okay. Pam, you have any thoughts about this, or Rachel?
Sorry, I was a little late to the mute button. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, is that Eric, or?
This is Eric, yes. Sorry, I'll
Go ahead.
identify myself next time. No, I've given some thought to this. And while in general, I'll just say this. I know that there are localities across the US who have banned plastic grocery bags, particularly those locations in Texas. I believe, I forget the name of the locale, but they're right on the Rio Grande River. And they saw tremendous success even at a municipal level. So even if it's not a county-wide ban or mandate, I think even at the municipal level, there can be traction and gains made. I'm not sure that this is something we should wait for the county council to make a decision on. It's something that we could certainly take back to our own councils and talk about in our own local communities, which might be a better grassroots effort to get this rolling.
Okay, good comment. Let's have Cindy Sharkey first, and then Sherry Horn.
So, Pam, maybe you know about this. I heard from Waste Management, I don't know, a few weeks ago, that they are potentially going to start to recycle plastic bags. It was a conversation with Blakely and Ellie. It sounded like it was a future event, not imminent. Do you know anything about that?
I know about as much as you do on that, Board Member Sharkey. I've been told the same thing by Blake, that it's a future endeavor that they're looking at for their equipment. And I don't know the cost associated with that. I think we all understand that the plastic bags themselves are recyclable in some avenues or some way. But I think the big issue is the tying up of the machine. So I think that Waste Management, the company, is looking at trying to find ways to deal with that when it comes through the waste stream. I can go on to say that I do have concern about trying to switch that thought, because we deal with two vendors, Waste Management and Rocky Mountain Recycling. To my knowledge, our other vendor has not been looking at this type of research or way to deal with the plastic bags in the stream. They still don't want them, and right now Waste Management still does not want them, and we still get charged contaminants if they're in the stream. So I have no idea what the projected timeline is. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
If
Board
you're
member, sorry.
talking to me, yeah, I haven't heard any more about that. I may go back to Blake to ask that question. It's interesting. When I was first elected, it's been 3.5 years ago, this was the first issue that was brought to me by a constituent. They wanted to look at banning plastic grocery bags in Sandy. So I looked into it. I talked to a bunch of different subject matter experts. What I found at that time, and it's been 3.5 years ago, so things may have changed. I mean, the recycling market seems to ebb and flow and change, but Transjordan Landfill had told me that on the environmental side, that they didn't have any issues with blowing bags, leaving their premises, winding up in waterways in the Great Salt Lake. So that was one perspective, right? You have these bags, they're collected, they go to the landfill, they wind up everywhere. They had no reports of any kind of problem like that. They also told me that there was, I'm just looking at an old email that I wrote to this constituent. They said that there were studies that were showing that when grocery bags, plastic grocery bags were banned, that they saw a significant uptick in landfills from the thicker plastic bags, like what the ones that would come from retail. You know, you go to a store, you buy something at the mall. So it seemed like people were reusing plastic bags for a purpose, whether it was pet waste or some other kind of use. And then they were going from the thinner grocery bags, which take less time to, which break down more quickly, to thicker plastic bags because they still had a use for reuse of plastic bags. That's what Transjordan Landfill said, that it almost had an effect of increasing the appearance of the thicker bags that take longer. That's what they told me. I don't know if that's changed, but from an environmental perspective, they said they didn't see an advantage, maybe a drawback to eliminating those plastic grocery bags. And they were the ones that told me to, I think I brought this up last meeting, that they were sure of the fact that when you take those plastic grocery bags back to the Smiths or Harmons or wherever they collect them, that they actually are recycled, and that they were sure of the fact that that was happening. So they said that was one of the few things that they could point to that they said really was getting recycled, not just collected and then sold to a market. And there was a hope that it was being recycled, but you couldn't ever be sure. That was their version of the story. So.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. Sherry, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess in general, whenever I make decisions on council or the board, whenever it's, we get approached oftentimes on the council to sign a proclamation about different things that we have no control over that. It's not in our purview. I am always opposed to signing those. I believe that there's certain jurisdictions, if you will, that make rules, and that's where you should focus your attention at. I'm not suggesting that we can't have an opinion, but my opinion differs a little bit from putting a ban on it. I don't know that we have enough facts about how long, because we do highway cleanup with the youth council in our city, and I guarantee you that if you go down the highway and that bag's been there for a little while, you go to pick it up, it's a mess. It's in a bunch of different pieces. So I have a hard time believing that a plastic grocery bag takes 1,000 years to decompose, because I've seen them picking up alongside the highway that they're in pieces, and we clean it every 6 months. So I don't know that, I honestly don't know that there's actual hard stats on that shows me exactly. Now, if you're talking about a really thick, heavy black plastic bag, I'm sure it takes a lot longer to decompose than a plastic grocery sack. And so some of the stats, it's like, I couldn't make a super educated decision based on, we think it takes 1,000 years to decompose, because I simply don't believe that. And I was in a little class that we did at our youth council retreat at Utah State, where we took old grocery sacks and made sleeping mats. They reuse those and make great sleeping mats and send them all over the world for different types of sleeping mats. So where I understand that there's an issue, and also we don't ban them in our cans. You can't put them in your recycle can, correct?
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm coming from a household that has a drawer with plastic grocery sacks in it that my husband uses for his lunchbox every day, or we reuse them for haul water bottles to the mountain, or we reuse ours all the time. So I would be probably not the best one to support that.
Yeah, let me just make a comment. I think that let me first comment from the piece that in our packet. There are a handful of states that have banned plastic bags, and there are 3 municipalities that we know of that have banned plastic grocery bags in their jurisdictions. Logan City, however, has repealed its ban. So the municipalities that have gone forward and enacted an ordinance banning plastic grocery bags are true spear carriers, forerunners, and it's how many? I think we have like 120 cities in Utah. So we have 2 out of 120 that have done this. And I just sense from the discussion here that we're probably not going to have unanimity from these board members to adopt any sort of formal recommend or any formal resolution. And maybe that's not even a wise thing to do. I suppose we have authority, Rachel, to do that, but I don't think it would be helpful for us to have a volatile vote on, are we going to have a resolution from this board, when we're probably going to have some yes votes and no votes. My suggestion would be that I think this is a great continuing discussion to have. I intend, this is just me personally as representing Holy City, I intend to take this information back to my council and have us have a discussion as a city council as to whether, and we again had a, like Cindy, this is one of the first issues that hit me when I was elected 3.5 years ago, and from a constituent, and I intend to present this to my council, but I don't know that it would be wise for us to try to craft some kind of a board recommendation. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Any other comments or thoughts about this from members of the board?
I'd just like to say, that I'm perfectly fine with that. I was requested to bring this up, as many of you have, had the subject brought to them.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to bring it before the board and get these ideas. And I agree with you that my plan of action, in lieu of any type of a resolution or anything, which I totally agree is probably not appropriate at this time. I'm going to go back and see if I can get this on the agenda for our work session, where we can discuss these facts and the information that's been presented to us, and just see what the feeling is. Is it something that we want to continue to discuss? Is it looking at some action, or do we just kind of push it aside?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'm in.
Do you know why Logan City repealed the?
Probably political change in an election.
Yeah, I mean, it was, 2 weeks before it was supposed to go into, 2 or 3 weeks before it was supposed to be implemented, it probably got some. We have
I was just curious.
we have a grocery bag full of grocery bags that we keep, and that's where we go when we need to grab an extra one as well. I think you might get a little more bang for your buck if you were to contact. not that I spend all my time in grocery stores, I don't, but I do go there occasionally. Maybe getting a hold of, you know, in our education or outreach, just saying, maybe if you made a little more, put a place that was a little more visible, you know, you can recycle your bags here, maybe on the way in or something like that. Then people can say, oh, I've got that bag of bags or my whatever, and I can empty my drawer out because now it's full or something like that. That might be an easier way to make sure they actually get into the recycling stream rather than the, waste stream.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, Robert? I think it's a discussion on sustainability. As soon as you ban it, people start bringing their own brought heavy-duty bags. Back in November, we were down in Patagonia, and they don't have any plastic bags. You have to buy the bag there. You know, it sends a different message. It's more awareness. So I can appreciate your position. It's very convenient, and maybe the facts aren't 100%, but it is an idea of sustainability, just being aware. So I think the discussion's healthy. Yeah, it's great discussion to have, and I'm sure Pam will keep us updated on if there's any other opportunities, but it sounds like at this point, let's just take this information as we want and use it. So, yes, yeah.
Just some insight, I guess. I came from Hawaii where they're into ban, and they also tax, so it's all paper bags, but they also tax 15 cents if you want a paper bag. Nobody does that. Everyone brings their own bag. My mom has a whole thing of bags. So I just want to say people do adapt. And if we're thinking about plastic bags, they can be convenient and they can be recyclable, but I guess reduction comes before recycling. So I just want to say people do adapt and it's not like that.
I have a thought.
Yeah, thanks, McKenna. Yes, go ahead, Lori.
It would be interesting to put out a recyclable bag that actually has all that can be recycled in Salt Lake County. And so it's an education piece as well as a piece that people can take in to quit using the other bags. And it would be interesting if we did some kind of advertising marketing campaign that way. Just a thought.
Yeah, there's definitely a role that the district has, and that is education as to how to dispose of your bags. So this, what we've talked about before, shouldn't indicate that we don't have any role at all.
Right.
So I agree that the education piece, and of course our sticker is part of that education piece, so.
And one of the things I should have included is that we rolled out a BYOB campaign, bring your own bag.
He's like,
And we gave you some before, and it was a big bag, but now we have it in a pouch. Is she gonna go grab one? Great, yeah, so it's still in effect, we still take them around, reorder when we run short, to make sure we're educating, please reuse. So yeah, I think she did go to grab one of those.
and I guess part of the education too is like, because like I was saying before, if I told somebody to take 1,000 years to decompose a grocery stack, I simply wouldn't believe it because I've seen them buried and pull them out of the ground and they're in pieces, right? And so it's like, so if you're gonna have an education campaign, it has to be very factual, you know, because that's the first thing somebody's gonna say, yeah, right. You know what I mean? And so if it's very factual, like what has it done for Connecticut to have banned the plastic bags? It's like what Cindy was saying. Did it increase this? Did it cause a problem they weren't even aware of? Because that always, for sure in government, as soon as you make a decision, there's some 100 other things that it impacted that are negative, right? And so what is some of the effects that it might have, pros and cons both ways, so you can properly really promote a please stop using your plastic bag campaign.
And I think also, you need to define decomposition too. Because just because a bag's shredded doesn't mean that it's decomposing. It's actually creating more of a problem. It's spreading in a larger area.
Sure, but see, if I'm a general public, I'm gonna say, what are you talking about?
Sure.
It's broken down, it's coming apart. So
Yep.
it's just knowing how to promote it to people who believe what you're saying.
Well, it kind of goes into the exception versus the rule, right? I mean, you can say something takes 1,000 years to decompose under certain circumstances. Yes, that could be true.
Yeah,
But what is the general rule? In general, that's what we should be
Yeah.
educating people with, rather than worst case scenario is this, because that's how a lot of fear and misinformation gets out there to begin with.
McKenna brought in a BYOB. McKenna, you want to explain this?
They're great.
To bring your own bag, and then it's a grocery bag.
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah,
I think we rolled that out, I can't remember, has it been 5 years? Or,
Right.
They're
yeah,
great.
prior to
They're-
McKenna's time.
they're really handy.
Yeah.
And what are those are made from a recycled material, aren't they? Or, I thought I remember you bringing those to
Yeah,
one of our
they're-
meetings.
well, I'm not sure about the bag itself, but.
We'd like to think so.
Just pretend.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great discussion, so I think this is definitely something that many of us may want to take back. I'm gonna take back to my city, of course, and, this has been a great discussion. I think it should be an ongoing discussion we have as things evolve, so thank you for bringing this up, Phil.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any other comments on this subject. Yeah, Robert.
Just as a transitional topic, so we had in Immigration Canyon our yearly event called Firelight. It's actually an open community event where we have all the different districts have their tables. The mayor cooks pancakes. We have great attendance, but I was able to sit with McKenna at the table for Woodford and do a quick activity. We had a bag of stuff, and then we had a blue lid and a black lid, and had kids and parents figure out what goes where. We even had a pipe pizza box that was super dirty, and talked about, maybe the top can be cut off if you want to go to that extent. But all in all, it was a very good hands-on experience to help educate the community. At the end, they got a bag. And so just trying to help take that idea of reduction first, and then help educate the community. So appreciate McKenna's time on a Saturday, and encourage you guys, if you do have those type of events in your communities, to participate together.
Okay, item 4, closed session. I don't believe we have need for a closed session. Any other board business, from members of the board? Okay, appears there being none. Looks like requested items for the next board meeting, which will be August 28th. We will not meet in July. We'll review the second quarter financial report, cash projections, and of course, Pam's general manager's report, including a review of the 2024 budget goals and priorities. I think that's the end of the agenda. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, have a great summer, everyone, and we'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.